Carlos had been driving trucks for 20 years, navigating the vast and winding roads of Brazil. He was no stranger to long hauls, but on this particular night, something felt different. The rain was pouring down relentlessly, the fog was thick, and the visibility was almost non-existent as he made his way from São Paulo to Curitiba, through the treacherous Serra do Marche. As he carefully maneuvered through the winding roads, his headlights suddenly caught something on the side of the road. A woman, dressed entirely in white, stood motionless on the shoulder, right at the edge of a sharp, perilous curve. Who could she be, standing out there in the middle of nowhere, in such dreadful weather? Instinctively, Carlos hit the brakes, his heart racing. The truck skidded on the wet pavement, almost veering off the road. Had he seen a ghost? Or was it just a figment of his imagination, conjured by the exhaustion of a long day's drive? But no, she was there. He had seen her, clear as day. He pulled over, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the door handle. Should he get out? Should he help her? The questions raced through his mind, but before he could decide, the woman was gone. The spot where she had stood was empty, as if she had never been there at all. Carlos shook his head, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was it the fog playing tricks on him? Or had he really seen someone, something? As he drove on, he couldn't shake the eerie feeling that someone, or something, was watching him. The whispers began soon after. Faint, almost imperceptible at first, like a soft breeze passing through the cab of the truck. But they grew louder, more insistent. And then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw her again. The woman in white, seated in the passenger seat, her face hidden in the shadows. How was this possible? He was alone in the truck, or so he thought. The air around him grew colder, and he felt a chill run down his spine as a cold, ghostly hand seemed to brush against his shoulder. Who was she? What did she want? Shaken, Carlos knew he couldn't keep driving like this. He needed to stop, to find some comfort in the company of others. He pulled into a 24-hour truck stop, where the familiar warmth of other drivers greeted him. Over a cup of coffee, he shared his experience, hoping for some reassurance that he wasn't losing his mind. But the faces around him grew serious. The woman in white was no stranger to them. She was known as the Woman of the Curve, a spirit said to haunt this very road. Years ago, she had died in a tragic accident at the curve where Carlos had seen her. Ever since, she had been appearing to drivers, a ghostly reminder of the dangers that lurked in the fog and rain of the Serra do Marche. The other drivers advised him to pray, to stay vigilant, and above all, to avoid this road at night if he could. But could he escape her presence? Was there a way to drive these roads without encountering the ghostly figure that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once? Carlos knew one thing for sure, his journey wasn't over yet. The road ahead was long, and the night was far from done. As he got back into his truck, the questions lingered in the air. Would she return? Would he make it to Curitiba without another encounter? And what would happen if she did come back? With a deep breath, Carlos started the engine, the darkness of the night pressing it around him. The road stretched out before him, filled with unknowns and the shadows of the past. And somewhere, just beyond the reach of his headlights, she was waiting. Marcelo was a seasoned truck driver, with years of experience crisscrossing the vast, lonely highways of Brazil. He cherished his time on the road, but above all, he valued his strong bond with his family. On this particular night, he found himself driving through the barren stretches of Mato Grosso, the sky void of moonlight, the darkness thick and suffocating. As the hours passed, the road remained empty, an endless ribbon of asphalt cutting through the wilderness. But just when Marcelo thought the night couldn't get any more unsettling, something caught his eye, a small figure standing by the side of the road. It was a little girl, seemingly lost and alone in the middle of nowhere. Why would a child be out here, at this hour, in such an isolated place? Marcelo's heart skipped a beat. He slowed down, pulling over to offer help. As he approached, he could see her more clearly, a girl, no more than 8 or 9 years old, dressed in a simple dress, her face pale under the dim glow of his headlights. Marcelo stepped out of the truck, calling out to her. But before he could take another step, the girl vanished. She was just gone. No trace, no sound, as if she had never been there. Was his mind playing tricks on him? Or had he just witnessed something far beyond explanation? Confused and shaken, Marcelo returned to his truck. He tried to push the incident out of his mind, convincing himself it was just a product of exhaustion. But the night had other plans. As he resumed his drive, an eerie sound filled the cab, children's laughter echoing through the radio. Marcelo quickly turned it off, but the laughter persisted, haunting the silence. And then came the feeling, the unmistakable sensation of being watched, of eyes lingering on him from the shadows. No matter how hard he tried, Marcelo couldn't shake the unease. Sleep eluded him, and the creeping sense of dread grew stronger with every passing mile. Determined to understand what he had encountered, Marcelo decided to retrace his route the next day. He returned to the spot where he had seen the girl, hoping to find some clue, some explanation. And there, lying in the dirt, he found it, a small pendant with a picture of the girl inside. He took the pendant to a nearby town, asking the locals if they recognized the child. The answers he received were chilling. The girl's name was Alicia, they said, and she had gone missing years ago, never to be found. But Marcelo wasn't the first to see her. Other truckers had reported similar encounters, always on this same stretch of road, and always followed by a sense of impending doom. The locals warned him that Alicia's ghost was often a harbinger of disaster, a sign that something terrible was about to happen. But what could Marcelo do? How do you protect yourself from something you can't see, something that might not even be real? Despite the fear that now accompanied him, Marcelo knew he couldn't abandon his life on the road. The highways were his livelihood, his way of providing for the family he loved so much. So, he kept driving, always with one ear attuned to the radio, where the laughter of children sometimes returned to taunt him. But over time, Marcelo learned to live with the strange occurrences. He became more vigilant, more cautious, and though the fear never entirely left him, he found a way to keep going. The road was long, and the memories of that night lingered like shadows at the edges of his mind. But Marcelo was a survivor, and no matter what the night brought, he knew he would find a way through. He was a trucker who cherished the freedom of the open road and the life it afforded him. After a long delivery deep in the interior of Sao Paulo, he sought a place to rest before continuing his journey. That's when he came across an old, abandoned sanctuary, a seemingly perfect spot to catch a few hours of sleep. But from the moment he pulled in, something felt off. The sanctuary, shrouded in shadows, exuded a sense of foreboding. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of an owl. Despite his unease, exhaustion won out. He parked his truck, settled into the cab, and tried to rest. But as the night wore on, sleep remained elusive. Just when he thought he might drift off, the sounds began, soft, rhythmic murmurs that echoed through the night, like prayers being whispered by an unseen congregation. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. He strained to listen, but the words were indistinct, a chorus of voices blending into a haunting melody that chilled him to the bone. Unable to ignore the eerie atmosphere any longer, he grabbed his flashlight and stepped out of the truck, hoping to dispel his unease with a quick look around. But what he saw froze him in his tracks. There, in the moonlit courtyard of the sanctuary, a procession of hooded figures moved in silence. Their cloaks were dark, their faces hidden in deep hoods that seemed to swallow the light. He shone his flashlight on them, but the beam seemed to pass through their forms, as if they were nothing more than shadows. No faces, no features, just empty voids where human expressions should have been. One of the figures suddenly turned to face him, and though he couldn't see its eyes, he felt its gaze piercing through him, cold and unyielding. Panic surged through him. His instincts screamed at him to run, to get as far away from that place as possible. And that's exactly what he did. He scrambled back into his truck, heart pounding, hands trembling as he fumbled with the keys. The engine roared to life, and he sped away, leaving the sanctuary, and whatever haunted it, behind. When he finally felt safe enough to stop, he recounted the terrifying experience to his fellow truckers at a nearby diner. As he described the hooded figures, the murmurs, and the oppressive atmosphere, he saw their faces darken with recognition. They knew of the place, and they shared similar stories, tales of ghostly apparitions, unsettling sounds, and the suffocating dread that lingered long after they had left. From that night on, he made a vow. He would never return to that sanctuary. No matter how tired he was, no matter how desperate for rest, he would take a different route, avoid that cursed place at all costs. But the memory of that night never left him. The image of those faceless figures, the echo of those whispered prayers, stayed with him, a constant shadow over his journeys. The road remained his life, but the fear that gripped him in that sanctuary followed him wherever he went, a reminder that some places are better left forgotten.